When I arrived with a cake to surprise my wife on her birthday, after 9 hours of driving through a snowstorm, I heard her tell her sister, "God, please let him crash." "The insurance would be useful to me," her sister said, "or a few months of stillness at the very least." They chuckled. The cake was left on the counter by me. I left the following morning. She felt bad about everything she said 3 weeks later. Thus, my wife Abigail, 31, and I, 33, have been wed for 7 years. A timeless tale. The narrative goes like this: high school sweethearts reconnected at a mutual friend's wedding after splitting up for college. Or so I believed. Lately, things have not been going well. Abigail has been aloof. It all started around 6 months ago when she started spending more time with her sister Mia and this new circle of pals, who all seem to drive expensive cars and take expensive vacations. I'm not passing judgment, just taking note. Abigail began remarking that our house was starter size and inquired as to when I will advance in my job. I put it down to a phase. We have a comfortable home. We have 2 good automobiles, a nice 3-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood, an annual vacation, and nothing special, but we're doing okay. Or I believed we were. It was Abigail's birthday last week. In the Midwest, February birthdays are terrible, cold all the time. Snowy plans are frequently canceled. I therefore made the decision to try something unique this year. Although her birthday was on a Tuesday, she had expressed interest in spending the weekend with her sister because they were going to a spa on Saturday. I informed her that I would have to stay behind because I couldn't leave work. That was untrue. In fact, I had made plans to take Friday off. She was taken aback when the plan delivered her favorite cake from this neighborhood bakery to Mia's house on Friday night. After that, take her to a classy dinner that I had previously scheduled. Even her favorite outfit and shoes were in the luggage I had packed. I had everything figured out. On Thursday night, the weather reports began to appear suspect. 3 states, including the whole path I had to drive, were under a winter storm warning with temperatures between 6 and 10 inches. It would have been canceled by most. I didn't. It took me 3 weeks to get the reservation at the restaurant, so I was partially determined not to waste it. At 7 a.m., I departed. Friday. The drive, which should have taken 6 hours, ended up taking 9 hours. Driving through a thick layer of snow made it difficult for me to see the taillights ahead. Everything slowed to a halt after 3 highway accidents. To keep awake, I had to stop twice for coffee. But whenever I walked through the door, I couldn't help but think about Abigail's face. Worth it. Correct. Arrived at Mia's neighborhood at approximately 4 p.m. The plows hadn't arrived yet, so we had to park a block away. Trotted through ankle-deep snow and grabbed the dessert box. By the time I reached his front door, my jeans were saturated. The door was not locked. They were talking and laughing in the kitchen, and I could hear everything. I heard my name just as I was ready to shout. Abigail was in the middle of Noah's sentence. Nothing. Silence on the radio. I couldn't make out what Mia said, then more clearly, Abigail. He said he was stuck at work in a text earlier. In this weather, it's probably still there. Mia answered that they would have sent everyone home. He's most likely playing that pointless game again while wearing headphones on the couch. I stood frozen at the doorway. This wasn't the typical lighthearted sneer at my gaming habits. Her tone was one of genuine disdain. Mia remarked, "At least he's not here to ruin your birthday week." At that moment, I nearly intervened to make my announcement. I wish I had. I heard what happened next instead. Can you imagine? God, Abigail chuckled. Until he told the same 3 stories he always tells, he would insist on joining us for dinner tonight. When I wanted to go out tomorrow without him, he would then give me that dejected puppy face. My stomach gave a nod. I held this dumb cake while I stood there. I listened to my wife make fun of me in front of her sister while I drove 9 hours in a blizzard to deliver. He's securely out of the way, at least. Mia said, "The roads are terrible." My friend's spouse spent 3 hours delayed on the highway. A pause occurred. Then Abigail said something that will always stick in my memory. "God, please let him crash. I could benefit from the insurance." They both fell silent as if I had made a sound. I believed I had been apprehended, but Mia answered, "Or a few months of stillness at the very least." They both chuckled. Real laughter at the idea of being in the hospital or dead. I can't recall making a conscious decision about what to do next. I simply entered the kitchen, set the cake box on the counter, and left their faces behind. In real life, I've never witnessed someone's face lose color so quickly. Despite Abigail calling my name, I continued to walk back to my car in the snow. Before I could even insert the key into the ignition, I waited there for about 20 minutes. My phone exploded. By the time I reviewed 38 text messages, I had missed 17 calls and read exactly none of them. I drove to the closest motel, which charged me $80 for a room that smelled like desperation and cigarettes. Until dawn, I switched off my phone and gazed at the ceiling. There were 29 missed calls and 63 texts on my phone when I finally turned it back on. I didn't read them. I sent my pal Theodore a text just now. Abigail experienced something. For a few days, I need a somewhere to stay. As the MVP, Theo just responded. Doors were unlocked. There are beers in the refrigerator. While Abigail was still at Mia's, I packed 3 suitcases full of clothes and necessities and drove the 9 hours home. I went to Theo's after retrieving my vital documents from our fireproof box. 3 days have passed since then. I haven't spoken to Abigail yet, but it's not because she didn't try. She has left voicemails that range from angry to emotional, called from several numbers, and even showed up at my workplace yesterday. I wasn't present. Today, I called in sick. I went to the bank and changed all of my passwords, frozen our shared credit cards in my name, and transferred half of our joint savings to a new account. I informed my boss that I had a family issue and would need to work from home for a week. I find it strange that everything is so meticulous, because I feel like I'm falling freely inside. The problem is that I can't stop hearing those words. I'm hoping he crashes. I could benefit from the insurance. Who would say it to someone they are meant to love? Who finds it funny that their spouse has been kept silent for months? Realizing that this is most likely not the first time she has said anything like, is even worse. I only heard it for the first time. Our pals have begun contacting us. Abigail seems to be telling others that I'm overreacting and that we had a misunderstanding. The classic gaslighting tactic. Whatever happened, I'm sure you guys can work it out without even asking for my side. A mutual friend texted. I've kept what I heard to myself, but even Theo is unaware of the whole story. He has not exerted pressure. He simply gives me space and keeps the refrigerator stocked. I finally got around to reading some of Abigail's texts last night. They have a recurring pattern. Perplexity. You went where you left, but why defensiveness? It was merely a joke. That rage wasn't meant for you to hear. You're acting like a child. Pick up your fucking phone manipulation. I'm concerned for you. Tell me you're okay, please. Dangers. I'm going to report you missing to the police if you don't return my call. Self-pity. It's unbelievable that you would do this to me over the weekend of my birthday. There was not a single sincere apology or recognition of how flawed her remarks were. I read those and then blocked her number. I am not prepared to speak with her. Perhaps I never will be. A coworker recommended Milton a financial advisor with whom I met today. Went through our accounts for 2 hours. I learned some fascinating facts, such as how Abigail has been spending $700 a month on internet purchases for the past year, and how she obtained a store credit card with a $3,000 amount that I was unaware of. Milton assisted me in devising a strategy to simplify our financial situation. Everything is lawful. It's nothing suspicious, but it means Abigail will soon have to face the truth about her spending patterns. There is enough money in the joint account I didn't touch for this month's utilities and mortgage. Then we shall see. I don't intend to leave her penniless. All I need is for her to realize that there are repercussions. The strange thing is that I still find myself questioning whether I'm exaggerating, as though it might have been a joke. However, I recall her tone, the casualness with which she wished me dead, and the subsequent laughs. I'm aware that I am not. Theo advises me to speak with her in order to gain closure. He might be correct. However, I'm still processing at the moment. I'm still attempting to understand the true nature of the person I married. I will be silent for 4 days, starting tomorrow. Abigail. Today, Sister Mia attempted to call. I didn't respond. Then Lydia, our neighbor, texted to tell that because I had changed the garage door code, Abigail was at our house, sobbing on the front step. I feel awful about it. I don't most of the time. The insurance comment isn't even the thing that keeps me up at night. The laughter is the cause, the simple root. The idea that I was in pain made them both laugh. Who does that? How long has she been experiencing these feelings? In addition, I've been curious about the life insurance we purchased 3 years ago. Although $500K isn't much, it's enough to make someone hope he crashes. I suppose. Tomorrow I'll give the insurance company a call to inquire about modifying the beneficiary. I realize this is getting lengthy, but it helps to type everything out. Tomorrow, Theo will have coffee with a friend of his who practices divorce law. If anyone is wondering what I'm going to do next, I need to know my alternatives. I'm not sure if that's where this is going. I'm not sure yet. There's a part of me that wants to simply vanish, move to a different state and change my number, make a fresh start. However that feels like fleeing, there is another component that desires conflict. When I repeat her words back to her, she wants to see her face, wants to give her 100th of the pain I'm experiencing. Mostly though, I just want the void in my chest to disappear. When I close my eyes, I want to stop seeing her face. I want my mind to quit replaying those words and that laugh. But for the time being, I'm focusing on the here and now, keeping my head down, making plans, and letting her inquire about my whereabouts, my knowledge, and my plans. I'll provide updates as events unfold if there is interest. Anyway, I appreciate you letting me rant. Sometimes the only place where strangers will simply listen without attempting to solve every problem is the internet. Still breathing, still standing. An update on Noah. For those joining, a brief summary of the prior post. In order to surprise my wife Abigail on her birthday at her sister Mia's place, I drove 9 hours through a snowstorm. I overheard Abigail expressing her wish that I would crash in order to get the insurance money. After leaving the cake on the counter, they left. I've been spending the last 3 days at my friend Theodore's house, ignoring her texts and calls, as I take care of financial matters. Many of you requested updates as events unfolded, so here we are. My previous post was a week ago, and 10 days have passed since I heard those words which are still playing in my head, like a terrible TikTok sound. Anger wanes, so the saying goes. In any case, that's what the self-help podcast that Theodore has been listening to in the kitchen says. After the anger passes, you have the mental clarity to make wiser choices. I have yet to receive that portion. On the 4th day of stillness, which was last Wednesday, I woke up with a plan. It's not a good plan. It wasn't a good plan, but it felt perfect at the time. Since I knew Abigail would be at work at 9:30 a.m., I waited until then. Theodore's pickup truck and 3 empty luggage followed me home. The house has not changed since I had gone. Mail stacked at the door, coffee mug still on the counter. However, it felt different, alien. It feels more like entering a movie set than the real thing. Starting in the bedroom, I packed everything I owned except for the clothing Abigail had chosen for me, leaving the rest hanging in the closet like discarded cocoons. Took the external hard drive containing all of our pictures, my journals from the bookcase, and my grandmother's watch from the dresser. Petty perhaps, but in the office, I paid for the fucking thing. After disconnecting my gaming gear, I walked away from the workstation. We took the chair, but we bought it together. She grumbled about the old one's squeaky wheels, so I bought it. I also took our marriage certificate out of the filing cabinet. I have no idea why. Simply felt significant. I spent hours painstakingly removing myself from the house, along with my books, albums, tools from the garage, and the strange metal sculpture I had purchased at that art festival that she detested. What nothing that we had bought together was taken by me. We spent 3 weekends browsing before deciding on the couch. We had eaten thousands of meals at the kitchen table. The bed in which we had slept argued, reconciled, and made love. I left all of our framed pictures in their original locations. Something about every wall showing my face grinning back at her. Every surface seemed natural, a reminder of what she had discarded prior to my departure. I took 3 actions. I started by lowering the thermostat to 62 degrees. If it was below than 70, Abigail constantly complained. I then removed the light bulb from the refrigerator. It was a minor annoyance that would go unnoticed for days, but each time she opened it at night, it annoyed her. Third, I also modified the Wi-Fi password. I hope he left the router unplugged when he crashed in 223. Little trivial stuff. Things that before she ever absorbed the larger loss would cause her to feel my absence in 100 different ways. Lydia, our neighbor, was retrieving her mail as I locked the door behind me. She glanced at my belongings in Theodore's truck. Then they raised their eyebrows at me. I simply shrugged and announced that I was taking some items to give away. She didn't think I was real. Despite what her eyes told her, she nodded and entered. Midwest etiquette. I avoid awkward inquiries. Take care of yourself. Usually irritates me, but on that particular day, I felt thankful. With the exception of 2 suitcases containing clothing and other needs that were brought inside, I put everything in Theodore's garage back home. When we were done, he simply offered me a beer and stated, "Sometimes life kicks you in the teeth." He assisted me in unloading without asking any questions. Financial day was Thursday. Milton and I had another meeting. He had compiled all of our account data and organized it in a spreadsheet. My stomach turned at that. Abigail had been spending far more than I had thought it turned out. In addition to the store credit card I previously mentioned, she was unable to provide receipts or transactions. I could see for the more than $12,000 in cash withdrawals from our joint bank account, $300 here, $500 there, during the previous year. Milton assisted me in writing an official letter. Not divorce papers, requesting financial separation. Not just yet, but a firm declaration that I would no longer be held accountable for any further obligations she accrued. Had it sent to her office via courier. Petty, perhaps. Successful. Of course. I also changed the passwords on our cloud storage, where we stored vital papers, and terminated our shared streaming accounts and subscription services. Moved all of my correspondence to a P.O. box. Our entwined lives are cut off in small, systematic ways. I finally checked my social media on Friday morning and found 34 Instagram direct messages and 17 Facebook messages. Even my inactive Twitter account received messages from people who wanted to know how I was doing. What happened to Abigail? People ask, choosing a side before fully understanding the situation. I only uploaded a picture of a half-eaten birthday cake sitting on a kitchen counter. No caption, no background, only the cake. My phone blew up after an hour. Friends texted to inquire about its meaning. In 20 minutes, Abigail called 6 times. Because Abigail was so anxious, her best friend Jill messaged me to inquire how I was doing. I didn't respond to any of them. I met with Ramona at work that afternoon to let her know I needed some alone time. He was surprisingly sympathetic. I just wanted to see if I could still manage the Wilson project remotely and how much time I needed. Yes, I accepted the project. The time is 2 weeks. He refrained from prying, simply gave me a shoulder clap and remarked that sometimes the greatest way to gain clarity was to acquire some space. It was the first good counsel I had received since the beginning of this whole situation. The first big confrontation occurred on Saturday. As I stared at frozen pizzas at the grocery store, I tried to recall which brand Theodore liked most. When my name was called, I turned to see Mia standing there with her shopping basket in hand and a pale look as if she had just seen a ghost. She began as usual. Abigail is quite anxious. Everyone is worried. Could I just have a conversation with her? Her tone changed when I didn't answer, claimed that I was being immature, said it was only a sibling joke, said that I was exaggerating the situation. At last, I said something. Asked her directly if she believed that wanting your spouse dead to get insurance money was a common topic for sister jokes. Asked if she would like to say something similar to her boyfriend. Asked whether she understood that joke was the result of months of Abigail's mounting disdain. She just muttered something about misconceptions in context. She had no answers. I left my partially full carton in the aisle, replaced the pizza, and departed. Petty indeed. It's satisfactory. Yes, too. It was calm on Sunday. To watch the game, Theodore invited several buddies around. No one asked, but they all sensed something was wrong. Made room on the couch and handed me some beers. I felt virtually normal after 3 hours. Then Monday arrived, along with it. The truth. I started a temporary leave of absence. My phone had 15 missed calls from Abigail during the course of the night, while the house we had shared for 5 years was half empty across town. At last, I heard one voicemail. She spoke in a different tone, raw and scratchy. I hadn't been sleeping, she remarked. Claimed that without me, the house felt strange. claimed that she was becoming alarmed after noticing an increasing number of my belongings gone, asked whether I was abandoning our marriage or if I would ever return. Her language treated our relationship like a Tinder match for some reason. You can simply vanish from anything that has hardened. I ended myself parking outside our house after texting Theodore that I was going for a trip, my home. For about an hour at Abigail's place, there was no sign of her car. Despite the fact that it was daytime, the porch light was on, as if she had forgotten to switch it off. There were so many wine bottles in the curbside recycle bin. I didn't enter. I sat there thinking how much money I had left over for my mortgage. I'm not sure if I should try to buy her out or sell it and divide the money. I was curious as to how we had gone from eternity to forensic accounting in just 10 days. Our credit card provider sent us another unexpected financial notification on Tuesday regarding strange activity. Abigail had spent over $2,000 shopping at boutiques and department stores. Is it intentional financial sabotage or retail therapy? In any case, I reported the stolen card over the phone. My PO received a new one. Box. That night, another bridge caught fire. At last, I made a more significant internet post. It's a basic status, not specifically regarding Abigail. The right thing and the toughest thing can sometimes be the same thing. For those who know, it's vague enough to indicate something particular. It would be seen by Abigail. It would be seen by her pals. The story was changing from Noah having a breakdown to a major incident. I had heard those comments in Mia's kitchen 2 weeks prior on Wednesday. I have been silent for 2 weeks. Abigail made frantic attempts to get in touch with me for 2 weeks. A lawyer and I met. Theodore suggested Milton a kind man. Indeed, my financial advisor and I share the same name, which quickly became complicated. He outlined my choices. Since we don't have children, the divorce would be simple, but the house and money would still be difficult. He recommended a legal separation first to provide us both time to fully sort things out. He immediately drafted the papers once I gave my approval, and he stated that he could have it served as early as Friday. With every day of silence, the ball was now moving faster and faster. Things became more heated on Thursday. Theodore answered the doorbell as I was working remotely from his dining table, then returned with an uneasy appearance. He claimed that Abigail was crying and pleading with me outside. As Theodore clumsily inquired if he should let her in or send her out, I sat there with frozen coffee halfway to my lips. It didn't feel right either way. I wasn't prepared for her visit. Sending her go felt like giving her ammunition, but I wasn't prepared to listen to whatever justifications she had prepared. Evidence that I was being irrational. Theodore allowed her entry after I nodded. She wore what appeared to be the same sweater from days earlier, and she looked awful with her hair unwashed and her eyes red-rimmed. She was standing in the doorway looking at me as if she was still in shock that I was real. I didn't give her a seat or get up. Simply wait. She started off by inquiring as to whether I was actually serving her with the separation papers. It seems that Milton's assistant had called to confirm our address, and she had persisted until they disclosed the reason for the call. The element of surprise is a waste. Yes, I was, I replied. I refused to give her an explanation when she asked why I wouldn't speak to her. It sounded as though she had to force the words out of her throat. There was nothing to explain, I assured her. She told me that she had been under stress due to work and bills, which was not what I had assumed. And even though she didn't mean it literally, her sister always brought out the worst in her. It was merely gloomy humor. Following several glasses of wine, I asked her if she could recall exactly what she had said. I hoped she'd simply crash on the couch for a while, she said, after hesitating, and I misheard. I took out my phone at that point and listened to the audio. I did have a recording, yes. Not because it was my intention. In an attempt to come up with something else to get her for her birthday, I had been recording gift ideas on the drive using a voice memo software. In addition, when I got there, the cake was still recording. You can call it pure accident fate, or whatever you choose. Her exact words. In her own words, "God, please let him crash. I could benefit from the insurance." Mia's answer, or a few months of stillness at the very least. The subsequent laughing. As Abigail injured herself, the color faded from her face. She made an attempt to take my phone. I pushed it aside. She said it was taken out of context and began to cry more. It wasn't her intention. I'd never get injured by her. I only had one question for her. If I hadn't heard this exchange personally, would you have told me about it? Her quiet was sufficient response. When she arrived, Theodore had made himself scarce, but now he returned to the room uncomfortably, implying that perhaps they should talk about this more when their emotions were down. Ignoring him, Abigail concentrated only on me. She began enumerating all the ways in which she had come to understand how much she relied on me throughout the previous 2 weeks. How without me the house felt empty, how she was unable to sleep by herself in our bed. She said that she had no intention of hurting me, and that if I would simply return home, she would live out the rest of her days making amends. It was a once-in-a-lifetime performance. Hands shaking, voice breaking, and trembling tears. The appropriate time. I might have been moved 2 weeks ago. She might have been believed. However, I had altered in some way. For 14 days, I had been contemplating not just her words, but also the reasons behind them. The casual cruelty must have been fueled by contempt. I didn't believe I had married someone who could chuckle at the idea of my dying. So I was honest with her. I was uncertain if I would ever be able to trust her again. Punishment was not the purpose of the separation papers. They served to safeguard me while I determined whether anything could still be saved. It wasn't warmly received by her. Started arguing that I was discarding 7 years because of a single dumb remark, claiming that everyone vents by saying things they don't mean. Because by neglecting her and going missing, I was being unkind. I simply sat there, allowing her words to pass over me without really getting to most me. When she eventually lost her temper, I advised her to thoroughly review the separation documents before making any decisions, as they would be sent tomorrow. She cried as she went. Her face was smeared with mascara. When he returned with 2 drinks, Theodore declared that it was the most awkward thing he had seen since his parents' divorce. I liked the effort, but it was dark humor. I had trouble sleeping that night. As she listened to the recording, I kept playing back her face. I saw real regret despite the shock and terror. Only the fear of the repercussions. The papers arrived as promised on Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, Abigail's sister was using social media to make ambiguous status updates about guys who overreact and ruin marriages due to miscommunications. It's funny how families band together, even when they know who is at fault. However, Abigail's best buddy experienced an unexpected event. Jill sent me a brief text message expressing her regret that I was going through this and that she had heard the entire story, including what Abigail had actually said. Claimed to have known Abigail since college and witnessed her making similar derogatory comments about other people. Claimed that she had previously tried to discuss it with Abigail but had been shut down. Since it was the first communication from someone in Abigail's social circle to recognize the gravity of my suffering, I chose not to reply rather than downplay it. However, it stayed with me. Perhaps Abigail's remark was an indication of her actual nature rather than a passing slip-up. Perhaps I had been oblivious to warning signs for years. It was a quiet weekend. I was alone in the house because Theodore had a date. I watched a science fiction show and ordered pizza. I tried not to imagine that in an other life or timeline, I would be at home with my wife enjoying our monthly pizza and movie night ritual. But Abigail had always refused to watch with me. On Sunday evening, Abigail sent an SMS. Only 2 words. I apologize. Sincere apology for the first time in 17 days. No justifications, no pressure to speak, only those 2 words. I gave it more thinking than I should have, but I didn't answer. Monday a.m. This new reality is day 18. Abigail was sitting in her car outside Theodore's house when I woke up, only observing the door while sitting there. Through the kitchen window, Theodore was the first to glimpse her. I gave her a call, questioned her about her activities. She claimed that all she had to do to know I was truly all right was to see me. Declared that she would not go near the house or cause a commotion. Only visual confirmation was required. It was strangely touching and worrisome. Since this wasn't beneficial to either of us, I told her to go home. "Have you read my message?" she inquired. "Yes," I replied. She inquired as to whether I thought she was sorry. "I didn't know," I said. Then she posed the query I had been afraid to ask. "Do you intend to file for divorce?" I was honest with her. I was still undecided. She drove away after being in her car for an additional hour, just in case Theodore advised me to change the locks on my residence. We spent the afternoon installing new deadbolts after I gave my consent. Another tiny break in our interconnected existence. 3 weeks have passed since that evening at Mia's. 3 weeks of quiet primarily spent apart and sifting through the rubble of what I believe to be a strong marriage. I'm not sleeping. Fantastic. I miss foolish things. The way that despite the higher cost, Abigail consistently purchased the superior coffee. How, every morning, she would sing poorly while taking a shower. Her absurd assortment of fuzzy socks, which invariably wound up on my bedside. However, the rising disdain that I now understand had been developing for months is something I don't miss. Avoid treading carefully around her moods. Don't miss the subtle jabs that I dismissed as being part of her humor. The documents of separation have been filed and signed. According to the lawyer, we are officially in a 6-month legal separation period, during which we are still legally married but live apart. After those 6 months, we formally separate our finances and either get back together or get a divorce. I would have said without hesitation that reconciliation was impossible 3 weeks ago. I'm not so sure now. It's difficult to untangle a 7-year marriage, not because I've forgiven her. Families, friends, houses, and bank accounts are all entwined in ways that I'm just now starting to comprehend. A notice appears on my phone as I'm writing this. Abigail sent another message. Could we just meet at a neutral place to talk? I am at a loss for what to say. I have a want to listen to her. I have the feeling that it's only delaying the inevitable. The majority of me is simply fed up with the whole thing. However, I have a feeling that I'll consent to meet her, if only to tell her in person all I've been writing to random people online. If there are any major changes, we'll keep you informed. I also appreciate all of your advice in the previous post, even the bizarre ideas about her shampoo bottle containing glitter. I like the camaraderie, but some of you need therapy. Still breathing, still standing. Noah. The last update. I left that cake on the counter exactly 25 days ago. 25 days of isolation, stillness, and more adulting than I ever wanted. Since there are only so many ways to analyze a failed marriage, until even the internet grows tired, this will most likely be my final update. First of all, I appreciate all of your DMs and comments. Indeed, even the strange one. The advice to place fish in automobile vents or aquariums was not followed by me. You people are barbarians. Due to my worry, I arrived to the coffee shop 15 minutes early for the meeting. Groundwork Coffee downtown at 2:00 p.m. It wasn't too packed for us to be overheard, but it was busy enough for background noise on a Thursday. I ordered a black coffee that I didn't want, sat down at a corner table, and waited. Abigail was right on schedule. She wasn't 5 minutes late as she normally is. She wore the blue sweater I had got her for Christmas last year, with her hair done and minimal makeup. I'm sure these were all strategic decisions. When she sat down, she didn't say hello right away. She had shed 7 pounds since my departure. Simply state the truth as if it had some significance. Stress. Losing weight as a relationship asset. The quintessential Abigail gesture. I didn't recognize it. Simply inquired as to why she desired to meet. On a yellow legal pad, she had prepared notes, real handwritten notes. I nearly burst out laughing at the unexpected sight. Whatever this talk was supposed to be, this woman who would sooner die than create a grocery list had bullet points. Her initial point, she apologized. Sincere apologies for her words. It wasn't her intention, and it was careless and harsh. She had been drinking wine with me all afternoon since she was worried about work and felt irritated that I was missing her birthday weekend. The words simply flowed. Why? I questioned. She flinched like if I had flicked water in her face, and then she laughed. Claimed that the laughter was nervous. Claimed that Mia always displayed her worst traits. Claimed it was a foolish attempt to appear cool and edgy around her sister. The second is that she had been assuming we were a couple. She had grown accustomed to the stability and protection I offered. She had become more focused on what I didn't accomplish and less appreciative of everything I did. Point 3. It had been a wake-up call during the last 3 weeks. She was aware of her reliance on me, but not only in terms of money, it included it. She was honest at least, but sentimental, said it was too quiet in the house, claimed that in order to hear a voice, she had begun talking to herself. Point 4. Couples therapy was something she wanted to try, had already located a specialist in restoring confidence following treachery, had scheduled a first consultation for the following week. Would I mind taking that into consideration? I sat there through it all, drinking my now cold coffee and looking for clues of the woman who had jokingly wished me dead on her face. Was this an act or sincere regret? I was still unable to tell. When her prepared statements were complete, for the first time she set down the legal pad and gave me her whole attention. When she asked me what was on my mind, I said that I was thinking about parallel universes and how I never drove through that snowstorm in an other timeline. Her words were never heard. We would still be lying next to someone who could chuckle at the idea of my being dead, living in perfect ignorance. She broke down in tears. Not Theodore's theatrical wailing from the living room. The silent tears she repeatedly wiped away with a handkerchief as if they were a bother. I outlined my conditions, just the facts, no negotiation points. As scheduled, the separation would last the entire 6 months. I wouldn't be returning at that time. Although I wasn't yet saying never to reconciliation, I also wasn't saying yes to couples counseling. I required time. Through it all, she nodded, as if every phrase were a tiny blow she was taking in. She simply asked if I disliked her once I was done. I didn't do the strangest part. Don't yet. Anger, disappointment, and hurt are present, but hate is absent. I informed her of that. Her expression was one of genuine surprise. Said that she had been convinced herself that I must despise her for excluding her so totally. Claimed that the fact that I didn't was nearly worse, since it indicated that I no longer cared enough to feel anything that intense. It wasn't totally incorrect, so that hurt. After that, the conversation came to an end. We decided to discuss practical issues like the house and bills via email. She would keep making mortgage payments. It also has her name on it. I would keep making my utility payments. At the 3rd month of the separation, we would reevaluate. As we stood up to go, after some hesitation, she requested if she may give me a hug. No, I replied. As if expecting it, she nodded, gathered her belongings, and left. For another half hour, I sat there contemplating how strange it was to speak so professionally with someone you've seen. Horrible sob. When you experienced food poisoning, someone held your head, someone who was familiar with all of your humiliating, foolish childhood tales. 7 years. On a legal pad reduced to bullet points. After that, life went on in its strange new pattern. I decided to continue working remotely till the end of the month. I hung up some photos and purchased a good mattress topper, which made Theodore's extra room feel less transitory. I set up habits going to the gym 3 times a week, running in the morning, and making supper with Theodore when our schedules coincided. With little interaction from me, the silent tactic kept yielding surprising benefits. Abigail seems to be genuinely reflecting. A week after the coffee shop conversation, her sister Mia wrote me a shockingly humbling message, telling me that she had been a negative influence on Abigail for years and urging her to be brutally honest. Go ahead and read. As a perverted kind of sisterly bonding, that is, claimed that she felt ashamed of herself for having a chuckle that day. Didn't beg for my pardon. She only wanted me to know that she understood her part in the circumstance. I took screenshots but didn't reply, not to gain leverage. I wanted to remind myself that my feelings of betrayal were not insane. In the meanwhile, the financial strain was more severe than I had expected. Jill, Abigail's friend, contacted her once more and mentioned that Abigail was having trouble supporting herself with her salary alone. She was looking for a roommate to assist with the mortgage, but she didn't want to move in because she was still expecting you would return home. She had to quit her monthly spa membership. I didn't fall for the ruse, but I did see that a friend was being used as a manipulator to make me feel bad. Mentioned Abigail was free to get in touch with my lawyer if she wanted to talk about financial arrangements around day 30, and thanked Jill for the news. There was a change in Abigail's manner. Her communications grew more pragmatic and less sentimental. She began using resale apps to sell some of her more costly clothing, and Bags sold her second car, the useless convertible she had insisted on purchasing last summer. and even indicated in an email that she was thinking about enrolling in classes to boost her income. It felt like a fast-forward look at someone's development. Ironically, despite my determination to not save her, I felt proud of her. An unexpected turn of events occurred on day 35. I went to my PO and checked the mail. Package, and discovered a thick envelope from Abigail with a USB disk, 10 pages on the front and back, and a handwritten message inside. From her point of view, the letter was basically a chronology of our relationship. Every big moment, both joyful and unpleasant. The lake proposal, our initial heated argument regarding her miscarriage in the 3rd year, which we never really discussed in depth. The slow change in her perception of me, from a partner to a provider to a barrier. In a manner our real chats had never been, it was brutally honest. She acknowledged that she always wanted more, and that she resented my satisfaction with our life. Acknowledged that despite knowing that her friends were drowning in debt to keep up appearances, she had compared our lifestyle negatively to theirs. Although she acknowledged that she flirted with her coworker Jason last year, she said that nothing physical occurred. With her therapist's consent, audio files and recordings of her treatment sessions were stored on the USB drive. It seems like I only heard one. Hearing her analyze our marriage with a stranger made me sick to my stomach. Observing the sincere perplexity in her tone as she attempted to clarify her remarks on the insurance money. It was too personal, too unvarnished. I placed the letter in my document box and erased the files. Throwing it away seemed horrible, but I'm not sure whether I'll ever read it again. Another development occurred on day 40. At the hardware shop, we ran into Lydia, our neighbor. She said that rather than throwing parties, Abigail had started holding some sort of weekly get-together at the house. According to meetings on Wednesday nights, there are always 6 or 7 cars in front. My curiosity overcame me. I parked down the block and watched that Wednesday. Between 6 and 6:30, 7 women showed up. Some I knew as Abigail's friends all about her age. Some were unfamiliar. I didn't go over. I texted Jill later to inquire casually about Abigail's current activities, which would be strange. She added Abigail had founded a women's accountability group that focuses on overcoming harmful relationship patterns and financial literacy. I didn't anticipate that. The dynamics of social media drastically changed about day 40. Mia, who had been noticeably quiet about our predicament on the internet, wrote a long status update about helping my sister identify harmful tendencies and supporting her during her awakening. Abigail replied with a simple "love you" after she tagged her. But when I'm ready, I'll share this trip. Our common friends took notice of this. People who had been ignoring me suddenly began contacting me to find out what was going on. The rumors swirled. Abigail was reportedly in rehab. She wasn't. I left her penniless after cleaning out our accounts, according to someone else. False as well. Another said that the separation was reciprocal and that we had been experiencing issues for years. I suppose that's partially accurate. I remained silent. Let them ponder. Day 50 was a major day, because for the first time since I left, I returned home while Abigail was there. I had to go to the garage to retrieve my winter equipment. We received 6 inches of snow overnight, proving that Minnesota spring is a hoax. I first texted her to check on her. She replied right away that she would be working on a project at home all day. It felt strange to pull into the driveway. It was time to mow the lawn. There was no care in the flower beds. Tiny indications of my absence. Abigail didn't linger when she met me at the door, told me to take as much time as I wanted. She seemed to be painting something in the kitchen, so she withdrew. It was a different house, had a distinct scent as well. Not as much as my laundry soap. More akin to the diffuser for essential oils. Using had always been her dream. However, I saw that 2 powerful images had been moved. Not significantly, but noticeably some stuff shifted. I discovered my winter belongings in the garage, meticulously packed, labeled, and packaged, rather than thrown together in a hurry. She had even added details about my favorite scarf that I had forgotten. As I packed the boxes into my car 2 Christmases ago, I noticed the pricey gloves my mother had given me. Abigail emerged with a coffee mug, inquired as to whether I would like to see what she was doing inside. There is no pressure, only a proposal. Curiosity prevailed. accompanied her to the kitchen, where she had a little art studio set up. She was painting motivational slogans on wooden signs, the same type of stuff she used to make fun of people for purchasing a Target. As she clarified that it was therapeutic, she actually appeared uncomfortable. Additionally, she had sold some at a nearby farmer's market. We may have spoken for 15 minutes. Surface-level information: the water heater, her parents' anniversary, or the reoccurring knocking noise. A typical dialogue between two individuals who formally shared everything. She mentioned something that resonated with me as I was walking away. Claimed that after reading about sorrow, she had come to the realization that she was both mourning and trying to keep our marriage intact. And in her mind, those two ideas were running counter to one another. Since I experienced the same contradiction, I nodded and said I understood. We hadn't had such an open conversation in years. Financial certainty arrived on day 60, not with the lawyer, but with Milton, the financial advisor. Still unclear. Disclosed that Abigail had been honoring our agreement, regular payments on her personal credit cards, and no new shared debt. I was unaware that she had even paid off that store card. Milton indicated that, depending on my stance on reconciliation, it might be appropriate to talk about additional long-term financial arrangements. It occurred to me that I hadn't given that decision much thought in weeks. I had steered clear of the more important question because I was so preoccupied with upholding boundaries. So, like choosing which car to buy or which job offer to accept, I created a list in the pro-con approach. However, the question was whether to attempt to save a 7-year marriage or to leave for good. The list was ineffective. There are some things that cannot be measured. Theodore declared on day 70 that he was taking the person he was seeing seriously enough to talk about moving in together. He told me that I could stay as long as I needed to, but not right away, not for several months. The subtext, however, was obvious. It's time to make a more long-term plan. I signed a 6-month contract for the second one-bedroom apartment in a walkable downtown area after touring 3 others that weekend. Good kitchen, a new beginning. Emailed Abigail to inform her. I understand, she said in a single phrase. Here, however, the door is still open. Day 75 was the day of the move. Theodore and 2 of his mates assisted. The elevator was broken, so it took 4 hours to move boxes and furniture up 3 flights of stairs. We christened the apartment with an impromptu picnic in the living room after ordering pizza and drinks. That night alone in my new apartment, I opened the folder of pictures on my external hard drive because I hadn't yet purchased a dining table. Memories spanning 7 years. Holidays, vacations, and sporadic intervals during the workday. Off camera, Abigail was laughing at something. Abigail's mouth is slightly open while she sleeps. Early on, Abigail looked at me as if I had hung the moon. I refrained from crying, just sat there with the burden of all that we had lost and all that we had created. Abigail sent me an email on day 80, wondering if we could get together again. When our 6-month separation was over, she wanted to talk about what might happen. 3 months away, but she wanted to be ready for anything. In more neutral terrain, we met at a different coffee shop. She had her hair cut shoulder length, wore basic clothing, jeans, sweater boots, and a canvas tote in place of the gaudy designer purse, looked good, and was in good health. The dialogue was straightforward. She inquired as to whether I was inclined toward divorce or reconciliation. Sincerely, I informed her that I hadn't made up my mind, asked her what she desired. If I could forgive her in the end, she said she would like to try again. Forgive truly, not merely utter the words while harboring bitterness. Claimed that instead of telling me about her, she wanted the opportunity to show me that person, and that she had changed over the previous 11 weeks and was still changing. I think she changed, I said. Said I would also change. Stated that I wasn't sure if we had changed or if our new selves were still compatible. That was fair, she remarked, nodding. She then gave me a sealed envelope and explained that it included her suggested parameters for a divorce, reconciliation, or outcome. Requested that I read it when I was ready and share my thoughts with her. After 3 days, I opened it. It included the most sensible, mature document I could have ever seen from someone battling for their marriage as it was about to end for reconciliation. Couples therapy for 6 months prior to living together. Complete financial openness on both parties. routine evaluations of relationship satisfaction, the union's annual state, conversations regarding divorce objectives and developments, equitable allocation of resources according on contributions, rather than a rigid 50-50 split. At market value, she would purchase my portion of the house. No alimony in either case. If at all feasible, have a clean break with little legal assistance. It was sensible, realistic, and entirely different from the Abigail who 3 months prior had wished me dead for insurance money. Both sets of terms seemed reasonable, I told her via email. I requested more time so I could decide. Take all the time you need, was her straightforward response. Today is day 90. I heard those remarks in Mia's kitchen 3 months ago. 3 months of solitude, detachment, introspection, and development. Cakes have been on my mind. Mia's counter, the one I left there. It was intended to commemorate the birthday, the point at which everything was altered. I got the same cake this afternoon at the same bakery, drove to my new apartment, and placed it on my new counter. Then, for the first time in 90 days, I sent Abigail a direct text message with a picture I had taken. She called right away. I let the voicemail go. After that, I listened to her message while sitting on my used couch and cutting a piece of cake. She didn't plead, didn't assume anything, simply stated that she was aware of the symbolism, stated that she would agree to whatever I chose. She expressed her pride in my ability to manage this situation with dignity rather than devastation. Said she was sorry once more, not asking for pardon, but expressing regret nonetheless. Tomorrow I have an appointment with the attorney, not to go through with a divorce. Not yet, but to talk about both paths' future stages in order to comprehend what reconciliation might actually entail following such an incident. To be certain of my decision, I'll be the only one to finish this dessert tonight. Not because I'm depressed, but because some paths must be taken alone. I'm not sure whether Abigail and I will be together in the future. She had caused a profound wound. It will be difficult to restore the confidence she destroyed. However, I am confident that my decision will be made with courage, rather than fear of clarity or confusion. Something unsightly was disclosed by those statements directed at me at the kitchen table. Perhaps, however, they also made a necessary revelation. Perhaps we had to shatter totally to discover our true nature. Or perhaps some things should remain broken once they are. In any case, I'm content with the procedure. To keep Abigail warm, the man who left that cake on the counter 90 days ago would have burned himself alive. Now the author is aware of his own work. I'll give you one last update after I've made up my mind, but for now I'm going to sign out. I appreciate you joining me on this adventure. Strangers on the internet. It's been a weird kind of therapy, your counsel, encouragement, and sometimes horrible recommendations for retaliation, standing and breathing more forcefully than before. Noah.